So the Democratic Alliance has announced its withdrawal from the national dialogue launched by President Cyril Ramaphosa. This follows the fallout between Ramaphosa and the DA over the firing of Trade and Industry Deputy Minister Andrew Whitfield. Ramaphosa says he axed Whitfield after he undertook a trip to the US without his authorization. DA party leader John Steenhuisen says President Ramaphosa orchestrated Whitfield's exit as he did not engage with the GNU partners on this matter.
The DA sees no further point in wasting our breath in endless talk shops with the ANC. For that reason, the Democratic Alliance's federal executive, which met at 1 p.m. today, has resolved to withdraw from the national dialogue with immediate effect. In the absence of a president who's prepared to take action against VBS looters and state capture accused sitting around the cabinet table, it is clear that the dialogue will be reduced to nothing more than a waste of time and money to distract from ANC failures. This week, without any significant forewarning or meaningful consultation, President Ramaphosa concocted an excuse to remove a DA deputy minister out of the blue because of his own failure to respond to a repeated request for travel permission. The hypocrisy of this conduct is even more galling when one looks at what sits around the cabinet table in terms of violations of law, of executive ethics code, and the ministerial handbook.
Now, for reaction on the story, I'm now joined by the ANC spokesperson, Mahlengi Bhengu-Motsiri. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much for having us.
It's an absolute pleasure. So the DA has put out what their way forward is in terms of that 48-hour ultimatum that they'd given to the president in ousting some of those ANC ministers who they say are accused of corruption. What's your take on what we then heard this afternoon in terms of them not participating in the national dialogue and not ruling out a motion of no confidence against the president?
Well, I just had a lot of analysis going around by opinion makers in South Africa and just by individual South Africans anticipating a motion of no confidence, anticipating a walkout out of the GNU by the Democratic Alliance. So, you know, there was a lot of hype about it. As the ANC, we just kept a watchful brief on that matter. And then, of course, when the DA articulated their position, quite baffling, really, but given the fact that the ultimatum suggested that should those things that they wanted not be done, the skies are going to fall. Now, what we do not support is an idea by any political party in South Africa that whoever is the president, even if they are not from the African National Congress, whoever is the president, their powers are vested in the Constitution. And the formation of the Government of National Unity has never meant to interfere with what is in the Constitution and should never, ever actually do so. So the idea that the president must co-govern or co-preside with the leader of the Democratic Alliance is not something that is contained in the GNU statement of intent.
So just maybe then clarify from your understanding that Section 3 of the statement of intent, because what seemed to be reiterated by the DA in many platforms today was that of collective decision-making, especially in times such as these.
It certainly does not include interfering with the powers of the president. That is also in the statement of intent. That was always envisioned. That was always discussed and debated during the time when all the political parties that are signatories to the statement of intent, there was a clear collective decision in as far as that is concerned. And that is why we say it cannot be that when the president makes a call about any matter, particularly a matter that has to do with his powers in the Constitution, that he ought to consult anyone on that matter. Now, the DA themselves, including Mr. Whitfield, by his own admission, he transgressed the requirements of anyone that is in the executive. Express permission to travel abroad has to be sought from the president, and the signature of the president should be appended. And so there's a clear violation. The DA chooses not to focus on that and chooses to shift the goalpost. Now, about the decision by the DA to withdraw from the national dialogue, that is regrettable given the fact that their constituency that they represent, that voted for them, will miss out on a very important conversation or conversations that South Africans are going to be having through that process. It is on them. But their withdrawal from the national dialogue, remember, this is not a process of political parties. It's a process that is led by the president, involving civil society, involving a number of non-state actors, such as faith-based communities, such as traditional institutions in our country, and so on and so on. So they are really, really denying themselves of participating constructively in a dialogue about the South Africa we want and the South Africa we must all aspire towards, and the individual roles of all of us as patriots to realize that kind of a South Africa, a government that wants, an anti-corruption program that we want, and a number of other participatory democracy, how we utilize the instruments that we have that are provided for by the Constitution. All of those conversations, they are going to deny their members and their supporters of that opportunity.
One thing they say they won't walk out of is from the GNU, saying that that would lead to a coalition of chaos. What's your take on that, and on having just that reassurance that they won't walk out of the GNU?
Well, I suppose it is the choice of the Democratic Alliance. When they suggest that they're not passing a motion of no confidence on the president yet, and underscore yet, when they decide to do so, they will automatically be defining themselves outside of the government of national unity. As the ANC, we have noted that the DA is looking for a situation where the ANC initiates a process of getting them out of the government of national unity. We are not in the business of destabilizing that government of national unity for the reasons that we initiated. It's like walking away from your own
marriage. Would you not define it as such?
Cooperation in the interest of the country. So we are not going to do that. All that we need to do is to strengthen the government of national unity, and strengthening it may very well mean that we have other parties to the GNU other than the way it is constituted at the moment. We are not ruling out that possibility either.
The DA spoke a lot about disrespect within the GNU from the ANC's end, not only to the DA, but also to other parties that form part of the GNU. Maybe let's just talk on common interest. And I suppose common interest would be that of the South African citizens. That is why you would have put together this GNU. The DA talking about not voting for portfolio budgets of ministers that they want the president to oust. And that would obviously then have an impact on higher education, on human settlements, as well as water and sanitation, very vital basic services for South Africans. What's your take in terms of just having those common interests as partners within the GNU for the betterment of South Africans?
We have had a number of threats of that nature from a party such as the Democratic Alliance. It is not in the interest of our country for the budget votes not to be voted favorably, because we need resources and also we need to project the outer years of the current medium-term expenditure framework of government. So it's not in the best interest of Parliament for that to be hamstrung by this approach that is unfolding in front of our eyes today through the statement and through the press briefing of the Democratic Alliance. However, we are quite assured that our parliamentary caucus have their ducks in a row. That is why we've been able to have the budget framework being adopted despite some opposition. It will not be the first time. It will also not be the first time that certain budget votes are not voted for by this party or that party. So I do believe that the years of having been in Parliament, we've garnered enough experience in terms of conversation, consensus seeking, persuasion, but also where those mechanisms don't yield anything, there are many other options available to be able to ensure that the work of government is not disrupted.
And I mean, Mr. Willie Okamp, the DA spokesperson, says the ball is in the president's court. If he then gets rid of these ministers, then you have the full cooperation of the DA. Do you think the DA is untoward in what they're asking for with regards to these particular ministers?
Let us just look at the issue of these ministers. Dr. Nobuhle Nkabane, her issue is at an advanced stage, led by the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education. There's a full-on process of parliamentary legislative oversight and executive accountability that is being exercised by Parliament. So I'm not certain as to what is it that is expected of the president must he now undermine a parliamentary process? Is it not an overreach before a process has been agreed to? The second one is also before the president, Thembis Melane. I could really just, the third one, I need to follow up, that is the state capture issue related to Mr. Mahlobo.
Yes.
Yes. So I really do think that we do need to allow the president the space to lead our country. From the side of the ANC has its own internal processes involving these individuals that we're speaking about. And those internal processes have been exhausted to a large degree. There is still just one step where the ANC has to exercise that and to conclude that in as constitutional and organizational a manner as possible. And let us say the DA is correct. Why threaten the president? Surely you are part of Parliament. You are part of the decisions of these portfolio committees. The DA is well represented in the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education. If there's a proposal for sanction against Dr. Nobuhle Nkabane, it will be made by Parliament where the DA has got a voice. The tendency by the DA to threaten, and in this case to threaten the ANC, is now starting to fall on deaf ears, frankly, because it is so constant. The 48-hour ultimatum that was given, again, it was a threat. And of course, South Africans expected that today we'll be having a government of national unity that needs to be reconstructed. It did not come to that, but the threats continue. And I think walking away from dialogue on the part of the DA is really a sign of lack of maturity. Remember, it is the DA that is crisscrossing the courts over transformation legislation. The Bella Act, the Employment Equity Act of late, the land expropriation legislation, and the National Health Insurance one. Of course, they also went to court on the VAT increase. And these are people who are part of government. Some are ministers, some are deputy ministers. So they are actually part of government. They are supposed to be part of finding constructive solutions to some of the intractable challenges that South Africa is facing. So, yeah, so it will really take a dim view of the DA wanting to continue to be the opposition when they've accepted roles within the executive. It's double standards. Some of them are ministers, some of them are deputy ministers. Surely you can't be both.
Well, the DA is saying that they are not walking away from government, but it's the ANC that's not affording them the opportunity to have those meaningful conversations.
That is really, I'm certain that is untrue. I can just recall, trying to collect my mind, recently had 2 or 3 bilaterals between the ANC leadership and the DA. Outside of the GNU, straight between the ANC and the DA, not our parliamentary caucus, Luthuli House. I don't know, you'll have to judge for yourself.
Right. Before I let you go, spokesperson, you touched on the internal processes that are happening within the ANC in reference to some of these ministers. But also earlier, the ANC has cleared 4 of its NEC members who were previously implicated in allegations of state capture. That's Zizi Kodwa, David Mahlobo, Malusi Kigaba, as well as Cedric Frolic. Do you think the timing of this has any significance, especially with what the DA has been calling for with regards to these ministers and their implications in corruption?
I must say, I've not gone through the entire finding, the narration and the reasons of the National Disciplinary Committee. I have been forwarded a report by the Secretary General. Ordinarily, by now, we would have released a media statement.
Yes.
But we've not done so because we've just been focusing on the matters of today. We will be doing so in due course. And I think it will only be fair to go through the entire finding by the National Disciplinary Committee, which is made up of eminent persons in the ANC, veterans of the organization, and really leaders of the ANC who are upright. It is chaired by Dr. Ralph Mkijima, and these are veterans of the ANC that basically they literally just focus on the work that needs to be done, regardless of who has to appear before them. And I'm very keen to see what is the detail in there. If the NTC has come to that particular conclusion, they would have followed a certain process, and surely they can account for their process. There is, of course, another step of the NTCA, National Disciplinary Committee of Appeals, and should the ANC wish to appeal that, but we are not there. I think we must just go through the finding and also just underscore that at face value, this comes across as though the ANC is condoning a wrongdoing. It is important to stress that the NTC is an independent body within the ANC with full powers, and they don't have to be influenced by any official. And that is why I would really not want to hasten to opine more thoroughly without having gone through the finding of the National Disciplinary Committee. And also just to say that we are still engaged in the process of organizational renewal. It's not going to be an easy process. We still have people. We recently had somebody who was suspended last week, a former mayor in the Northwest, who was suspended from the organization for 5 years. It may look as if this presents a picture of an ANC that is tone deaf on matters related to ethics. But I do wish to say that it will be remiss of me to comment on a matter such as this one without seeking further clarity through the finding of the NDC.
Well, hopefully once you've gone through those findings, we'll have you back on the channel to give us your perspective. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, spokesperson rather, for joining us this evening. That's Mahlengi Bhengu-Motsiri from the ANC giving us their take with regards to that media briefing that we heard from the DA a little earlier on.